Hello guys, today is another episode of your Sandbox project, and I thought of while I am finishing the tornado for the weather system, I can probably make some quick tutorial, not too hard, for such stuff like lighters, binoculars, etc. Like those attributes that most narrative games have. So let's begin. And I guess we should start with the input. So project settings, input. I have three inputs: F for binoculars, mouse axis wheel for the zoom in, and another one for night vision. Night vision or other post-process effect is like the visual sugar that's, or in some cases it's a gameplay feature that you can make by yourself. The one I did for this tutorial is pretty much easy, and it like plays its role, so it's not useless. And I'll show you the way how you can add some other effects to it. So let's continue. I think we should start with the post-process of binoculars, because my approach is the fully procedural mask that you can adjust wherever you like. You can see that I have the vector 4 attribute with the custom naming. Each channel is for the offsetting from the center of each mask. And as you can see, the main logic is just adding two radial masks together with the proper offset, so you can have the shape of binoculars. I also have radius and sharpness similar to both of masks, and screen light UV material function, so my post-process will be perfectly aligned on the widescreen radio monitors. I do also multiply the mask by 50 to get rid of sub colors like gray colors, and then I saturate it to have the proper from 0 to 1 value, and multiply it by scene texture post-process input 1. 0. So by this, my final color, my whole scene will be trapped inside my mask. Then simple operation, as you saw from the demo, I have the night vision, and to switch it on and off, I change the attribute night vision through the blueprint by simple looping between the basic post-process that I have here and with other one that I multiply with the color. Make sure that blendable location of your post-process set to be before tone mapping, so you will see proper results without affecting on the final color of your scene. As for the setup of the post-process instance, as you can see, my values, and for the Italian offset, V coordinates of left and right mask should be 0.5, so both lines are perfectly aligned on the center, and U coordinates of both lengths should be, the sum of them should be 1, and as you can see, to move left I have value smaller than the one that I have on the right. So play around with that to get the proper result. Now I'll continue with the main logic. So, player character. The way how I made binoculars is pretty much simple. I have the separate graph for binoculars, and I guess I will have the same for each element that I will create. In some cases there will be I guess blueprint components, but nevertheless On the event begin play, I have the custom event which I called init binoculars, so it's initialization, and by this I mean that I need to create the post process of my binoculars of this mask. Now I have the reference of my camera, and by default I set the custom field of view for my camera. So each time I start the game, this value is the default for me. Next, let me show you my setup. I have the category of variables, which is called binoculars. I have the post process. Also, I have boolean, which tells me that I am in active mode or my binoculars are switched off. Default camera field of view, modifier that I'll use for zooming in and out, current modifier, minimum and maximum with different values. Also have night vision brightness, the number that I'll use for the post process of camera exposure attribute, and three others. It's default post process volume, the reference that I receive from the volume that I have on my scene. Like when the player starts the game, I'll ask the actor of class, and in my case I always have one global post process on my scene. If it's valid, I store it as the local variable, and from it I expose the minimum and maximum brightness of camera exposure. This one and this one, and store them as the default min and max values to restore the default states of the global post process when I'm out, when I switch the binoculars post process, when I switch it off. So next one is the inputs that we created in the project settings. If I press the key of binoculars, I set the attribute to be active. Then these two messages to the interface are for the HUD elements, the scale coefficient that you saw from the demo, but this will be at the end of the video. Now you can skip it because it's not so important. So when I have the active attribute, I use my reference of post process to set blendable space weight to 1. If it's false, I set it to 0, so I won't have any post process added to my camera. And every time that my binoculars are off, I need to restore some default values to some modules. So default field of view for my camera, this one. Then modifier that I use for zooming, I need to restore it to the minimum value, because when you switch on the binoculars, you will receive by default zoom states. Like in my case, you will always have some coefficients added to your binoculars, and by default it's the minimum. Next, I need to switch off the night vision. So even if I have pressed the binoculars to switch on and I stop pressing it, it's like the order of keys are pressed. You don't care about how you press them on and off. it should work properly. So if my binoculars are off, I should forcefully switch off also night vision, and then return the default. Like in night vision, I need to have my ground to be highlighted by default. With post-process, I can't receive the proper effect, so I need to change the global attributes of global post-process. So I check whether post-process volume is valid. If it's so, I can use for the restoration the settings that I get on the begin play of my game. So every time that's, for instance, if I have different levels and I need to restore the proper values, if they have different values for each level, this will work perfectly. And if I don't have the post-process volume, like here you can use the custom value to restore post-process for the camera itself. Next, zoom in and out. I check whether binoculars are active. If it's so, I need to change the binoculars modifier current, and to stop adding over the maximum or beneath the minimum values, I clamp the value that I have with these two attributes. And each time I scroll my wheel, I add the value. It's always 1 or -1 to the current, so the modifier always increasing by 1 or decreasing by 1. And I set field of view for the camera by dividing camera FOV on the modifier current. So the higher camera FOV is, it means that you will receive more field of view. You will see more, like you see all the scene. And if you want to have it like scaled to have closer look, you need to divide it by particular number. Next, night vision. I check on press whether binoculars are active. If it's so, I need to switch on the night vision. I set scale attributes of night vision to 1 on my post-process input, and as you can see, I change the exposure of the global post-process. Like I change the actually the camera's exposure, but if I have it here, this one will overwrite the global post-process. So every time I use this trick, the exposure will be applied from the camera, not from the global post-process. That's why I need to restore default values to be the same as the global post-process. And if I release my key, and also if binoculars aren't active, I switch off night vision, and then I check condition whether post-process volume global is valid to restore properly elements, attributes. So that's the whole logic. Now, if you want to continue, I will show you my additional work about HUD elements. So you can use a widget to make your binoculars more immersive and more, like they will have more details. So let's continue. So the last part is our HUD. For my HUDs, I mostly use player controller to be the storage of all my widgets. So I also use the interface. My player character and player controller both have implementation of the interface that I called BPI player character. You can go with any logic you like. I'll show you the approach. So you can actually copy it. So If I talk about the interface, I have these functions: create binoculars, destroy binoculars, show, hide, and get binoculars mode. Each of them don't have anything except the last one, where I need to output the proper float value to use as the scale coefficient of my current scale. Once you've done these functions and you have implemented your interfaces, like this one, from player character, I need to call the event show binoculars and use player controller to send the message, because the implementation of this event is inside player controller, not inside the player character. And once I've closed my binoculars, I need to call the event hide binoculars. That's all you need to add inside the player character. As for the player controller or your implementation, here I have events for creating HUD. So by default, my widget is this one. Create like the simple one, and I'll show you the idea, and then we will start with our widget. So player controller create binoculars event. It's creating the widget and store it as the reference. Event destroy checks whether it's valid, then it removes it from the parent and sets the null value, so garbage collector can check it and delete. As you can see, when I create my widget, I don't add it to the viewport, because I don't need to create it every time and I don't need to remove it all the time. I only need to add or remove it when I use show and hide events. So those events, if my widget is valid, I add to viewport widget. If it's not, I remove it from the parent. And that's the logic here. As for the player character, all I need to do also is to return the proper scale coefficient. And for this, as I have the implementation of the interface also here, I can go to my interface, go to the binoculars, and you will see that get binoculars mode is this function, and return value I use modifier current, and that's all. Now if I want to receive this value from the HUD, I just need to send the message through the interface to my player character, and it will return this value. Now let's talk about the widget. So for the widget here, it's very simple. I have simple border with this setup, so it's aligned on the center, and then I have the offsets of the y-axis and simple text here that will actually store the message to show like current coefficients of the scale. Everything is simple, nothing fancy. Actually, one thing I should say is that for this widget, by default, its visibility is hidden, and I'll explain it why. If you go to the graph, also make sure that both elements here are set to be variables. Now, on the event construct, I create the timer, which looping every 0.1 second. And what it does, as you can see, it's calling the interface, make sure that it's player character, not player controller, gets binoculars mode, and it sets the text of the message with this particular format. It's just the way how you can make it work, and then you can expand this by everything as you like. So if you have some ideas, you can always make your request. And it has the retrievable delay at 0.2. It will return the visibility to visible. And on the event destruct, I clear and validate my timer here, and I set visibility of the main like make sure that you change the visibility of the parent of the border. So if it's hidden, the message or the child will also be hidden. The reason why I did this because by default I will have this one before the function here will get updated. So I can here clear this one, but in terms of visualization how to work it properly, I'll leave this one as the oh god, I forgot the word. Like it's not a backup, but it's placeholder. Yep. So, and not to create another timer, retrievable delay is pretty neat to just do it one time, like every time I show or hide my widget, this will trigger perfectly, and in this case retrievable delay is not a big deal, and it can be used here. So once you've done this, that's actually everything for this tutorial, and I hope you like what you see. So please subscribe to my channel, leave your feedback, also make sure to like this video, and if you want you can always support me by Patreon channel. I also do have Discord server, and I try my best to answer every time I have some time. So see you soon.